If you love all the flavors of fall and you love to bake, you're going to want to have some of your own pumpkin spice seasoning mix on hand. So easy to make. I'm going to show you how to do it. And all of your baked goods will have those fall feels and flavors, and you'll save some money. I've saved an old spice container so that I can put the mixture into that. It's a great tip. Spices that are used in pumpkin spice mix are traditionally cinnamon, ground ginger, ground nutmeg, allspice, and ground cloves. The combination of the spices varies from mix to mix. And if you buy a commercial pumpkin spice mix, you never know what the combination is going to be because it's proprietary. I made a funnel to put into my container so that I will be less likely to make a big old mess with this. And I have some wax paper on my counter so that I can easily pick up any overflow. So we're going to start out with 3 tablespoons of cinnamon. In addition to the cinnamon, so this is 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, you do want to use ginger and nutmeg. The allspice and the cloves add a depth of flavor that I particularly love, but you may want to leave them out or adjust them down. 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm adding a half teaspoon of allspice and a half teaspoon of ground cloves. To use your mixture in any recipe that you're making, just add up the amount of spices. So if, for example, it might say a half a teaspoon, a half a teaspoon, and a half a teaspoon, then you would use a teaspoon and a half of your pumpkin spice mixture. Easy as that.
Now let's use our pumpkin spice mix to make delicious pumpkin pancakes.
For the dry ingredients, in this bowl I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour with 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm going to mix the dry ingredients together in the bowl so that they're well combined and I don't have any clumps of any one thing all together in the mixture. Now I'm also adding 2.5 teaspoons of pumpkin spice blend. Also, stir that around really well so everything is well distributed in the dry blend. Smells so good. For the wet ingredients, we're mixing together 1 cup of pumpkin puree. This is from a can. 1 large egg. 2 tablespoons of butter melted. And 1.5 cups of buttermilk or a buttermilk substitute. If you're starting to bake and you realize that your recipe calls for buttermilk and you don't have buttermilk, you can make a quick buttermilk if you have milk and white vinegar or lemon juice on hand. Now, the traditional recipe for making the substitute for buttermilk calls for a scant cup of milk to 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Scant is a bit inexact for an amount, but the way that I handle it is that I measure out my vinegar and then I pour the vinegar into the cup and add the milk afterwards, having the vinegar account for a bit of the volume. So I call that scant. Today I need 1.5 cups of buttermilk. So I'm pouring in 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar, and then I'm just going to pour in the milk up to the 1.5 cup line. Set your container aside for a few minutes and you'll start to see the milk curdle, and that's what you want. Mix this together really well. I'm going to use a fork to make sure it's well blended. And now we just mix the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, stirring it so all of the dry ingredients are well incorporated. And we want this to be a little bit lumpy, so you don't want to beat all of the batter into submission, let's say. We want it to be thick and some lumps. And I'm going to set this aside while the skillet heats so that we can let some of the baking powder and the buttermilk do its work to create fluffy, tender pumpkin pancakes. I'm using an electric skillet that is set at 300 degrees. Greasing the pan with a little bit of butter. I'm using a scoop for uniformity in size of my pancakes. This is an ice cream scoop. You can see that after a minute or two, the pancakes start to get some air bubbles in them, and they're ready to flip. Let's take a look at how they are inside. They're light and tender, cooked all the way through. Serve with butter and fresh maple syrup drizzled over the top.
Now let's use our pumpkin spice mix in a yummy dessert for fall.
Pumpkin pie, of course. It's a quintessential pie for an everyday pie, as in a weeknight or weekend during the fall, or for the fall holidays. So quick to whip together. You probably have the ingredients in your pantry already. All you need are a can of pumpkin, a can of evaporated milk, some granulated sugar, 2 eggs, pumpkin spice, and a pie crust that you either made already or you could buy a prepared crust from the store. Easy peasy. My oven is preheating to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and in this bowl I have 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. To that I'm going to add 2.5 teaspoons of my pumpkin pie spice, and I'm going to stir that together so I can make sure that these spices are well distributed. I don't want clumps anywhere in the pie. To that, I'm adding 1 can of pumpkin and 1 can of evaporated milk. Mix that together. Stir in 2 large eggs. Mixing well to be sure that they're all combined. The pumpkin mixture for the pie, the filling, the custard filling, is all set. Now all I need to do is to pour it into the prepared pie crust. This is an unbaked pie crust. And bake the pie at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. Then reduce your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and continue baking for another 45 to 50 minutes until the center is set. Cool your pie completely and enjoy with a dollop of delicious homemade whipped cream.